In this video, I am going to show you how to set up libtins on your system, and I am going to show you how to do that on Windows. Now, libtins is a library you can use to do packet sniffing and crafting, and it's a really great library, so you can check it out if you are interested in those things. If we click on this link here, we're going to land here, and we're going to have all the information we want about this library. And the first thing you might want to do is to see how to get hold of this library, because what we have here is the source code. And if we go down here, we can see that it is possible to compile it ourselves using CMake. We can do all kinds of crazy things. So let's see how we can actually do this. We're going to go to the page and hit download, and we're going to find all the information to use the library. And on Windows, we really have two options. The first option is to use the prebuilt binary or precompiled binaries and directly use them in our C++ program. If you go down here, they are going to say that we have these prebuilt binaries on AppVeyor. So if we go down here and click on this little link, we're going to be brought to AppVeyor, and we're going to see that we have multiple versions of this library prebuilt. They used Microsoft Visual Studio version 2013 and 2015. I am just going to use 2015 because it has a high chance of working in my newer versions of Microsoft Visual Studio. So here I have 2019. That's what I want to use with libtins here. And another thing I should say is that these pre-built binaries only work with the compiler from Microsoft, which is embedded in Microsoft Visual Studio. If you try to use these with a GCC under the MinGW project or whatever, that's not going to work because these two guys are not binary compatible. So what I did, I went ahead and downloaded all these libraries here. And to download them, you just click on either of these. For example, if we want, we can click on the one from 2015 release, and for x64, if we click on this little link, we're going to have some gibberish here in blue, but we don't really want this. We want to click on artifacts. This is really easy to miss. And when you do this, you're going to have a link you can click to download, and I just went ahead and downloaded all these versions for 2015 because I may use them in my projects here. So let's open my downloads folder. Open containing folder. You're going to see that I have these four guys here. I have a release version for x64. I have a release version for 32-bit. I have a debug version for x64, and I have a debug version for 32-bit. Now, these are going to be specific to the kind of application that is going to be linking against the libtins. This has nothing to do with your operating system because many people get confused by this. So now we have these libraries and we can use them directly in a Visual Studio project. But before we do that, we're going to need to bring in a few dependencies that we need to work with us. If we go up, we're going to see that libtins depends on both libcap and libcrypto. We don't necessarily need libcrypto, but libpcap has to show up. On Windows, we use a version of libpcap, which is called winpcap. So we need to grab that here. We need a developer package, so we can go to the page here and go on development. I think we can go there, and you can download the latest winpcap developer pack. If you hit download, you're going to have this in your download. I think it's going to show up somewhere. We have winpcap 412. This is my version. We can get rid of all these others because we don't need them. And once you download this, please extract this somewhere on your drive. And you're going to be able to use it. Let's actually do that together. And we are going to put this in a location where we're going to be working with us in this project here. So we can go in projects. I set up a folder where I'm going to be playing with us. So let's put this right here. And I am going to extract that right here. And if we look in this folder, we're going to see that we have a bunch of examples for winpcap. But what we really need is the include folder here. We're going to use this in our project. And we need the lib, and this is a static library. This is really not a static library. It is a kind of stripped down version of the static library, which has some information that we're going to be needing when we build this application here. But we still need a dynamic library for win pickup, and this is something that tripped me off when I was trying to do this. So to get a hold of that dynamic library, please come back to win pickup, and you're going to go to get win pickup here. And if you go down, you're going to see that we have a link here to download an installer for Windows. If you download this little guy, you're going to get something like this in your drive. That's my thing here. And you need to install it. And this is going to set up the drivers and whatever that win pickup needs. Don't forget this step. Otherwise, you're going to see that your applications are not going to run if you link against win pickup. And we're going to be doing that from libtins here. So these are the dependencies we need. Make sure you have win pickup and you'll be ready to go. So what we're going to do now, let's do that. We're going to go in our project here. We're going to create a project which is going to be linking against, let's go to my download folder, one of these pre-built binaries. And I am going to choose a debug version of x86. So I am going to use libtins 2015 win debug. This is my choice here. You can use whatever you want, but make sure you know about whether it is Win32 or x64 and whether it is a debug or release version, because if you mix and match these things, you're going to have a problem. I am also going to grab this and paste that in my libtins folder. This is really my sandbox project. So let's put this here and we're going to crack this open. Let's do this. We can click and see what is inside. We have a folder called libtins. This is no problem. So we can extract that right here. So extract here. And this is going to give us libtins, and this is what we can link against in our program. Again, this is going to work if you don't want to build libtins yourself. So this is kind of the easiest way to get this running in Microsoft Visual Studio, but this is going to be limited. For example, you see that this is using an older version of Microsoft Visual Studio. So sometimes you may have problems with this. Another thing is that this is a static library, and sometimes you need a dynamic library. So if you kind of need that, you have to build this yourself. And I am going to show you that later after we finish this project here. So what I am going to do, I am going to create a folder here, and we're going to link against this version, which is a static library in debug mode, and it's going to be a Win32 application. Don't really forget this. So we're going to create a folder. Let's do that. We're going to call this libtins static link prebuilt. I think this is going to be enough. And we're going to create a Visual Studio project here. So I am going to open Visual Studio. I am going to create a new project. If you don't have Microsoft Visual Studio installed, please install it. And you're going to be able to do what I am doing here. I am going to create a console application. Let's do that. I am going to select this and hit next. We're going to call this app 1. And we're going to choose a location for this. And we're going to go in E. We're going to go projects, libtins, and we're going to put this in our folder here. Make sure it is correct, so you don't get confused. So this is going to be the location, and I am going to tick place. And I am going to check place a solution and project in same directory, and I am going to hit create. This is going to create my project. And this is a bare bones C++ application. You see, it's just saying hello world, and we have our project here. And the task is really to connect this to the pre-built binaries that we have on top here. So we want this to use libtins. We want this to use the win pickup library that we have here. And again, make sure that you have the runtime dynamic library installed that we downloaded here. Make sure this is really N. If it's not N, you're going to have problems. So what we're going to do, let's put in our dependencies. So we're going to go in our project here, and we're going to go at the location where we have main, and we're going to set up an include folder. How do we do this? I think if we go up and go to libtins, we're going to have two folders. We're going to have an include folder and a lib folder. I think we can copy this, and we can go in our project now, and that's going to be in this location here. And we're going to put in these two things. We have an include folder, a lib folder. The include folder is going to contain our includes. If you go in, you're going to see that we have header files. And the lib folder is going to contain our libraries. So this is going to be the location for these things. Please remember that we also have libraries from Win Pickup. So we're going to grab those libraries and we're going to put them together with our other projects. Please remember that we are doing a Win32 project. So we're going to grab this. If you were doing an x64 project, you would grab these. Please don't mix and match these. Otherwise, you're going to have problems. So we're going to grab these little guys. I am going to copy them and I am going to bring them into the project that we just created here. And I am going to put them in my library folder. So now we have our static libraries in place. Let's make sure we also have the headers from Win Pickup. And we're going to grab them from the include folder. We're going to copy them and make sure they are in our project. So let's do this. And we're going to go in include and we're going to have the headers that we need. We have pickup and all this craziness that is happening down below here. And now we have everything we need for this to work. Again, don't forget to have the dynamic library installed. It's going to go in a location where it's easy to find on your system, but make sure you double click on this and go through the installation and make sure it is installed on your system. If you don't, you're going to have problems here. Now we have our project. The next step is really to connect it to the libtins dependencies that we have here. For example, we have our include folder, we have the lib folder, and we need to get this to work. Okay, so to connect this to libtins, we're going to click on the project here. Please remember that we are going to be linking statically because what we got from AppVeyor here are really a bunch of static libraries. Okay, so don't forget that. So we're going to statically link to libtins here. Let's click on the solution. We're going to go to properties and we're going to make sure we are building in debug mode and in x86 mode or in Win32 mode. That's another way to look at it. And if you look at my properties window here, you're going to see that my configuration is debug and my platform is Win32. You have to match these guys because what we really are linking against is the debug version of Win32 that we downloaded. So these things have to match here. If they don't, you're going to have a problem. So if you had downloaded a release version of x64, you would choose release right here and choose x64 right here to make these things match. Don't really mix and match this, otherwise you're going to have problems here. Now we are at this location. We are going to click on C and C++, and we need to tell this project where to find the includes that we have in libtins here. We have an include folder which is going to have some includes from libtins in this folder. We will have the includes from pickup. We need to tell our system where to find this, or we need to tell our project where to find these little guys. To do that, you come to C++ here and choose general, and you add additional include directories. In Visual Studio, you do this by coming here and clicking edit and adding new line here by clicking on this little icon. Then I am going to browse for the location of my include folder. I am going to select it just like this. Let's make sure it's selected, and I am going to say select folder. It's going to show up here, and I am going to click OK for this to work. Okay, so this is taken care of. Another thing I need to do is to come to the linker. Again, these steps can be found by just searching on how to do static linking in Microsoft Visual Studio, but I am just going to show you how to do this here. I'm not going to go through the details of this. We're going to come to the linker section here, and we're going to come to general, and here we need to specify the location where we're going to be finding our library dependencies. So you come to additional library directories and you click on this little guy, and we're going to basically do the same. We're going to say edit, we're going to click on this little folder icon, and we're going to select the location where we have our libraries in this project here. I am going to select folder, and this is going to be available, and I am going to click OK. Now I am going to go to the input section here and specify the actual specific libraries that I want to link against. So I am going to go to additional dependencies here and click a little bit, click on this drop down and do edit. and I am going to have a little window in which I specify the libraries I want to link against. Now, if we go back in our project, we're going to find that we have a bunch of libraries. We have tinslib, wpickuplib. So that's what we're going to specify here. But if we come back to the project website and go to download and we scroll all the way to the bottom, we're going to see instructions on how to use libtins on Windows. Right, and they specify that we have to link against these libraries here. So make sure you put them in. Again, you can read this entire thing if you want. And I am going to paste this in here. But you notice that this is not saying tins.lib, so I am going to put that on top here. And I think we are all set up. So let's make sure we see everything here. We have tins.lib. It is available in our thing here, and we are really all set up. Let's hit OK. And again, we did three things. We came to C and C++, went to General. We added an additional include directory to select our include folder. We came to the linker section here and did General, and we added the location for our static libraries. And we came to input and specified the actual libraries that we want to link against in this project here. And now I think our project is actually ready to use WinPickup. So what we're going to do, we're going to click OK, and we're going to go to the project website, and we're going to go to tutorial. I am going to crack this open in another tab, and we're going to find a bunch of things. Let's grab this piece of code here and make sure it can compile in Visual Studio. So I am going to copy that, and I am going to put that in here. Let's select everything, and we're going to put in that little guy. And one thing you're going to see they say on the project is that if you are statically linking, you need to add this macro here to tell libtins that you are using a static version of the library. This is just a requirement here. You have to remember it. We're going to add this macro, and we're going to say tin static. And another thing I found out the hard way is that we have to tell it that this is a Win32 application. And if you don't do this, it's going to be looking for some Linux headers on Windows, and things are going to blow up. So do yourself a favor and define Win32 here. Maybe Visual Studio is going to put this in, but I am not sure. Let's just make sure this is working. And to make this project is really working and running to completion, let's include IOStream. And we're going to say a message here to the start. This is my little technique to know that my application is working. Let's say starting, and we're going to say stdc out. And why do we have a problem here? Stdc out, std count, that's what I said here. And okay, let's build. We're going to try and build this and see if this actually goes through the compiler. And we're going to see namespace std has no member cout. What is going on here? Oh, we didn't include IOStream, we included iStream, so let's include IOStream here. And this should work now. We're going to say build solution. We're going to have a bunch of warnings. The Win32 macro was declared, but this is just a warning. We can ignore this. But you see that the build was a success, and we have a bunch of warnings here that I don't really know the reason for. But we can ignore this and try to use our application here. So we have successfully statically linked against libtins, and we can use it. Again, please remember that your application is going to be looking for WinPickup, and you need dynamic libraries for this, and you get them by installing this little thing we got from the website. Again, if you want to get that, you come to WinPickup and you say get WinPickup. You're going to land here, and you're going to download the installer for Windows and install it, and it's going to put this on your system. Many people are going to have this problem if they are not careful about this. Now that we have this, we can actually debug and start without debugging. And let's wait and see if this actually works. You see that the application is going to start, the application is going to end. And from here, you can go on and start using all these examples here. This is just the setup you can use. Now, if this is something you're going to be doing a lot of times, you may need to save the setup that we just did as a template and create a project fast without having to redo this wiring we did from our project to libtins and WinPickup here. You can do that by coming to the project tab and selecting export template. And when you do that, you're going to say that this is a project template. You can hit next. So let's do that. And you can say whatever you want, maybe libtins project. And this is going to be available when you create projects from Visual Studio here. So let's save this. I don't think we need to provide any more information. Maybe start a project for libtins, we can say that. Let's, and we can hit finish. And now if we close this, this is going to be saved somewhere in the folders of Microsoft Visual Studio. We don't really need to care about this too much. But now if we close the project, if we close the Visual Studio here, what did we do? Did we close solution? Let's say close solution. I think we have an option here. Let's do file, close solution. This is going to close Visual Studio for us. But if we create a new project, let's try to create a new project. And if we scroll down, I think we're going to have a libtins template project. Let's create a new project from this. Let's call it other project, whatever. You can call it whatever you want. And we can put this in a folder. Yeah, so we're going to put this in the same folder as we did before. But this is a completely new project. And now notice that it is ready to use. It is linking against libtins, and we have all the dependencies in place. We can build it directly and get this to work. Let's try to build this, and you're going to see that this is going to be really cool. So we can, yeah, we have a macro definition, but we can live with this. And if we debug and start without debugging, we're going to see that this is going to work, starting, ending, and our program is working here. Now, we have just linked statically against this using prebuilt binaries, but you may need to build this yourself. A motivation you might have is, for example, to use a recent version of Visual Studio. We saw that they provide prebuilt binaries for Microsoft Visual Studio 2015, and we are using 2019 now. So we might want to build our own versions, and I am going to show you how to do that if you want to go down that path. Now, we're going to be using Visual Studio because I failed to get this to work with MinGW and GCC. Maybe I am going to figure that out, but for now, we're going to be happy with Microsoft Visual Studio. So these are the steps. To compile this, we need the dependencies we have seen. We need libpcap, we need cmake, because that's what's used here. If you don't know cmake, or if you don't have it installed, please at least watch this video here, cmake episode 001. You're going to see all the concepts. But if you are just interested in installing cmake and getting it to work with your compiler from Microsoft, you can just watch this little section here on installing cmake on Windows and Linux, and you're going to be ready to go. For now, I am just going to assume that you have cmake and Microsoft Visual Studio installed, and we're going to be using these tools to build libtins ourselves. You notice that this is the command to build. You can specify whether you want to build a shared version or a static version, or a dynamic version and a static version, if I can say it like that. And this is really what all you have to do. And another thing you have to do is to specify the location for WinPickup developer pack that we downloaded from this site here. So we're going to be specifying that. So let's go in our sandbox folder, and what I am going to do is say libtins build. I think I can say that. So let's create a folder called code, in which we're going to be downloading the code, and we are going to go inside and create a terminal window on this location here. So we can do that. I am going to close all these things. I am going to create a new terminal. You can use any terminal. I am going to use PowerShell here, but any would do. So we're going to go to GitHub and grab the code. We can go to code and copy the link, and we can clone this little guy in our folder here. Notice the location. So we're going to say git clone, and I assume you have Git on your system. So we're going to clone this little project, and we're going to be doing these little steps we see here to build libtins on Windows. We're not going to do anything special, and you're going to see that this is going to work out of the box. Okay, so by now I think the download should be done. If we do ls, we're going to find that we have libtins in here, and we're going to cd into libtins, and if we clear and look in here, we're going to see that we have all the source code we got from GitHub. We're going to create a build directory. We're going to say mkdir, and we're going to call this build. we want to remove that, and our directory is going to be called build, and we're going to cd into there. So we're going to cd into build, and we're going to run the command that we see in our instructions here. So we're going to run cmake, and we're going to tell it the location of the Win pickup developer pack, and we're going to pass a flag to disable encryption, and all of this is available in this little link here, so you can read all of this here if you want. And we're going to say that we want to build a static library. If we pass a 0 in this option here, we're going to be building a static library, just like we got this static library builds here, but we want to build our own now using Microsoft Visual Studio 2019. If you pass a 1, you're going to be building a dynamic library. Please note that. Okay, so what I am going to do, I am going to grab this entire thing here. I am going to copy it, and I am going to pass that in here. Notice that I am in my build folder. If I do pwd, you're going to see my location here. I am going to put in this command. Let's make sure we copied that correctly, because it seems I didn't copy it well. And we're going to copy, and we are going to put this command here. And notice that we need to put in our location for the developer pack. Let's take this out here, and we're going to grab that location. And if we go in our sandbox project, we're going to see that our developer pack is in this location here. So we can pass this here, the root folder, to that. So we can copy and pass this here. You see, I am going to paste that in here. And now we wanted to specify the generator that we're going to be using. And we're going to say that we want a 32-bit version of the project generated. And this is how we say it using cmake. And if you wonder how I got that, I just did a little search and I fell here and I had this little thing I can use. So this is how I got hold of this here. So let's hit enter and see our project generated. Then we're going to open that in Visual Studio and see if that works out. We want a 32-bit version. We want to mimic what we had with our prebuilt binaries. That's why I am hunting for the 32-bit version. And we're going to wait for this to finish. It's going to redo the same thing. And again, if you don't know where the cmake things I am doing here, please watch this little video. At least you're going to have the basics of what cmake is and what it does. And you're going to have an easier time building projects using it. Let's wait for this to finish, and then we're going to open this in Visual Studio. And you notice that it is using x86, the configuration. Hopefully we're going to get this doing what we want. And it's done. We have our build files. We can crack this open again. And we're going to open project or solution. And we're going to go in code, libtins, build, and we're going to find our solution here and crack it open again and see what we get. Okay, now we have a Win32 version of this. Let's see if we can build it. We're going to try and build it in debug mode. If you want, you can build it in release mode. So what can we do here? We're going to build this. We're going to build a solution. And you're going to see that we're going to have a bunch of warnings here. I don't really know why we have these. I didn't really investigate that much. So we're just going to wait and see if this goes through to completion. And then we will try and grab our library and use it and see if it actually works. So let's wait for this. It is still generating some things here. And we should have a static library at the end. And I am going to show you where it's going to be generated. We should wait for a while. You can see that this can take a while to get this working. But it's really flexible. Sometimes you need to build your own versions. You're going to see that the build was good. 17 little projects were built and 3 were skipped. And let's see where our build files are. I think it's going to tell us where they are. And from experience, I am just going to go there and see if I can get hold of them. So we are in our build directory. If we go in lib, we're going to find a debug folder. And here we will have our 2 files. We have a static library that we can link against. Now, if we do our own build, we have no choice but to hunt for the include files ourselves. And that's not really hard. If you go to libtins here, the code we got from GitHub, you're going to find an include folder, and we can use this to set up our new project here. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to try and link against this and create a Visual Studio project that links against this version of the library that we just built ourselves. Let's do this. I am going to crack open a new folder to our sandbox location. So let's go to E projects, and I am going to open libtins here, and I am in my location. Now I am going to create a new folder. Let's call this libtins static source to mean that we are linking against something we built ourselves. And we're going to create a new project here. So we're going to go in Visual Studio here. We're going to close the solution because now it's done. We don't need this anymore. And we're going to create a new project. So we're going to create a new project here, and we don't want a libtins project. We want a console app, a raw console application. Let's call this static link, and we're going to hit next. Let's choose the location for this here, and we're going to say this location here, and we are going to hit create. We're going to create our project here, and it's going to be a raw project with no information whatsoever about libtins. We need to tell it where our libraries are, and we're going to be using something we built ourselves. Let's go in, and we have our source file here. I don't like the name, so I am going to change that to main.cpp. Okay, we have this in, and let's go back and see if the name of the file changed. Where were we? We were here, and we can now put in our things. We need an include folder, so we can just grab this. I think this is going to work. So we're going to put in an include folder in this location. We're going to mimic exactly what we did there. Then we're going to go in our build directory and grab our lib folder. So we're going to put that in as well. And we can go on top and grab our dependencies. We need win pickup. So we're going to grab the libraries in there. We're going to put them in place. Again, we are doing a 32-bit version of this. So we're going to grab this and go in our project here. And we're going to go to lib. And we don't need this debug folder. So what we're going to do, we're going to bring all these two guys in an upper level so that they are at the same location. And we can ditch this debug folder here. It's going to go away. We also need the includes for win pickup. So let's do this. We're going to go there and grab them. And we're going to put them in place. Let's grab those little guys. We can copy and put them in place. We're going to go in our new project here. And if we go in include, we're going to put in the includes. And we should be ready to use this in Visual Studio now. We're going to repeat the steps we did for the other project when we linked against pre-built binaries. The only difference is that now we are linking against something we built ourselves, and we're going to see how this works out. Let's do this. We're going to go to C and C++. We're going to specify additional include directories. We're going to do this. So let's edit, and we're going to select our include folder. So this is going to be our first step. We're going to hit OK, and we are going to come to linker and general, and we're going to specify additional library directories. We're going to put them in place. Let's edit, and we're going to select the location for the location of our libraries, and we're going to hit OK, and we need to come to input in the linker section. We're going to do that. And we're going to put in our additional library dependencies. So we're going to go to the site. I think we have them right here. So this is a good section of them. We're going to put them in. This is what we did exactly. But let's say tins lib. I think this is going to be our first. And then we're going to put that in here. And we have our dependencies in place. Let's hit OK and apply and OK. And again, please don't forget to have the dynamic or the runtime version of win pickup installed. If you don't have it, you may have problems here. So we will try and build a minimal version of a project with libtins. I am just going to grab something from the website, and I am going to paste that in here. And we need to put in our defines. So let's put in our macro here. So we're going to copy this and go on top and say define tins static. I think this is all we need. And why do we have a problem with this include here? Didn't we specify the include location? Okay, it's working now. And let's try and build and see if this actually works. Again, what we are doing here, we are linking against a static library of libtins that we built ourselves using this particular compiler from Microsoft. And it is Visual Studio, Microsoft Visual Studio 2019, the compiler that comes with us. This is really important to understand, otherwise you're going to have problems. Again, notice that the project we are building is a debug version of x86 or Win32, which is the library that we generated. If you mix and match these guys, you're going to have problems. Let's try and build. We're going to build a solution and see if this actually works out. We're going to wait for this. You see the build is good, so this may be working, but let's try to run this and let's build again. We're going to build our solution. It's going to say the build is good, and if we debug and start without debugging, let's see what happens. This is going to start and end, and we can successfully link against a static library of libtins that we build ourselves. The next thing I want you to see is that you can also do a dynamic build and dynamically link against this. And this is something you might want to do. Now, if you go back to the build instructions, you're going to see that they are passing a 0 in this build shared option. And this is basically going to tell CMake to build a static library of libtins. We can also tell it to build a dynamic library of libtins, and that's going to be something we can use in our application here. So let's do this. We're going to go back in our build directory. We're going to go back in our code, and we're going to ditch whatever we just did with CMake so we can clear. Let's clear, and we're going to remove everything from this folder. This is something we can do. And we're going to issue the command to build again. It's going to be almost the same thing, but what we're going to do, we're going to tell CMake to build a dynamic library, and all we have to do is change the build shared option here from 0 to 1. So we want to tell CMake, please build a shared library version of libtins for Windows, and it's going to be a Win32 version of the library that you build here. Let's run this, and we're going to wait for this to generate a Visual Studio project, and then we're going to open that and build our library. We're going to basically repeat the same steps, but what we're going to get is a dynamic library that is going to be loaded at runtime when we run an application that uses libtins. We're going to close this solution here because we don't need this anymore. It is working. And we're going to see if this is done. It's not done yet. It's going to wait for a while. Let's wait until it's done. When we have a Visual Studio project, we're going to crack it open and then build our library. You see the build is done and our build files are in this location. We can browse to that location. We're going to open a project or solution, and we're going to do libtins. We're going to go in code, and we're going to see the build directory here, and we're going to have our library solution. So let's wait, and it's going to be a Win32 version of this, a debug version. This is what we're going to build. And notice that if we go in the build directory, we don't really have a lib or whatever. So we're going to generate those guys, and we're going to see them appear after the build is done. We're going to do build solution, and we're going to see our thing being built, but now we are building a dynamic library version of libtins for Windows, and it's going to be a Win32 version, a debug version again. Let's wait for this to finish. This is going to throw a lot of warnings here, but I am going to ignore these for now. Okay, it's going to say the build is good, and we have a bunch of files here. So let's go back in our project again, and we're going to see that we have a lib folder. If we go in, we're going to have a debug folder, and we have our library here. But if we come back in build again and do src and look at debug, we're going to see that we have a dynamic library version of libtins here, and this is what we're going to be linking against. So we're going to almost repeat the same steps, but we're going to be using a kind of stripped down version of the static library at compile time, and at runtime we're going to be looking for this dynamic library here. If you don't know what a dynamic library is, please look up that in some documentation or some video. You're going to find a lot of resources on that. What we're going to do now is set up a project which is going to use these little things here. So we're going to come back to our sandbox folder, and we're going to create a new folder which is going to say libtins dynamic source to say that we want to link against a dynamic library that we build ourselves. So let's do that. We're going to say libtins dynamic source, and we're going to go in, and what we're going to do is close the current Visual Studio solution we have. We're going to close that, and we're going to create a new one, and it's going to be a console application. We're going to hit next, and we can call this whatever we want. Let's say libtins dynamic source. You can call this whatever you want again, and we're going to put this in the correct location. So libtins dynamic source, this is the folder. We're going to select folder, and I think this is all we need. We're going to create this, and we're going to have a bare bones project here that we can use with libtins. So we need to link this against our thing. So the first thing I am going to do here is change the name of this little guy to main.cpp. Wrong option there, I think. We're going to rename this to main.cpp. And if we go where we have this project here, we can go in our dynamic project, and we're going to find our thing here. So we want to do the same things we did before. We want to grab our include folder, and we're going to put that right here. And we need a lib folder, and we're going to get that by hopping into our build folder, and our lib folder is going to contain a debug version of this. So let's do this. We're going to copy these little guys, and I am going to create a folder and call it lib, and I am going to go in and put in my dynamic libraries, my static libraries, I should say. Let's also grab the dynamic library and put that in the correct location. Again, our dynamic library is in src debug, and we're going to find this little guy here. We can copy and put that in here, and we're going to be putting this in the same location as our project where our binary was generated. You're going to see this when we hit that location here. Another thing I want you to see is that we need the things from WinPickup. So let's go to the top again, and we're going to start by the includes. We can go in there and go in include and grab the headers here. Let's make sure we grab the entire thing. We're going to copy and come back to our project. This is repetitive, but this is what you need to do to get these things working. We're going to go in include and paste this in here. We also need libraries from WinPickup, I think. So we're going to grab everything we have in lib here. We're going to grab these two. We're going to copy them and put them in our project here. Dynamic source, this is our project. And we're going to go in lib, and we're going to put our WinPickup things. I think this is what we need. So what we're going to do now is link against these little guys. We're going to specify our include folder. So let's right click on the project and go in properties, and we're going to specify our additional include directories in general in the C++, in the C and C++ section here. So let's add these little guys. We're going to do edit, and we're going to specify our include folder. This must be becoming second nature now. We're going to hit OK, and we're going to hop over to our linker section, general, and we're going to add library directories. So we're going to do lib, and that's what we're going to select here. So let's do that, lib. And again, we need to do this because even if we are doing dynamic linking, the compiler needs some information on our dynamic library at compile time. And that information is going to be in this little static library that we got from the dynamic library build here. If we go back to our project, we're going to see that this actually gave us a static library, which we have here, even if we are really building a dynamic library. And notice that this little library is really small compared to what we had before. You can go back and check. This is really small. I think the other one was 20 megabytes, and this is not even 1 megabyte. So it had some stripped down information on the things we're going to be getting from the dynamic library here, but we still need this. Even if we are linking against the dynamic library, please know this. So we're going to put this location here, and we're going to be putting in our input, and we're going to select this, and we're going to make it use the same things. So we're going to go back to the site, scroll down. I think if you go down, we're going to find our dependencies here. So we're going to copy those, and we're going to say tins.lib, and we're going to paste these little guys, and we're going to hit OK, and OK again, and apply. And now we have a project which is going to be linking against libtins. Let's go back and grab our starter project. I think we can grab that right here. So we're going to put this in place, and we're going to delete everything and put in our little thing here. Okay, and now we can try and build this. Let's see if this works out. We're going to do build solution. We're going to wait for this. It's going to say build succeeded. And if we try to run this, let's see if this works. We're going to do debug, start without debugging. And it's going to say, this can't run because tins DLL was not found, right? And this is really what I want you to see. We are linking against the dynamic library. And for this to work, the executable has to find that. So what we're going to do, we're going to find the location where the project was generated. So let's go in our thing here. If we find our main CPP file and go in the debug folder, under that, we're going to find that we have our application here. Even if we try to double click on this to start it, you see we're going to have a problem. So what we need to do, we need to grab the dynamic library that we built, which is this DLL here. And we're going to put that in the location where our binary was generated. We're going to paste that right here, right? And we're going to run this again. We're going to go to debug, start without debugging. And now you're going to see that this is going to run to completion. It's not going to give us any problem. And to kind of prove that this is going to run to completion, you can include IO stream. This is something I like to do when I am trying things out. And if we build again, let's do that. We're going to build a solution. And the build should be good. Ignore this gibberish here. We have a bunch of warnings, but we're going to ignore them. And the build succeeded. If we debug and start without debugging, we should say starting and ending. And that's what's happening here. And this is a successful static link against libtins. And we linked against something we built ourselves. So now you really have three options to use libtins on Windows with Microsoft Visual Studio. You can link against the prebuilt binaries as we have seen. You can build statically and link against your own static library. Or you can build dynamically and link against the dynamic library. And again, for this to work, you need to have Win Pickup, and I mean the runtime version of this, the dynamic library of it, to be available. If you don't have it, you're going to be having undefined references, and that's going to be really bad. Another thing you need to remember is to have your library match the kind of project you are building here. For example, if we were building for x64, we would need a library that was built for that. If we mix and match these things, we're going to have weird problems. So make sure you don't really mix and match these. x86 or Win32 is a good thing because it's going to run both on 32-bit and 64-bit versions of Windows. So that's why I use this, but you can use whatever you want now that you are knowledgeable in how to build libtins for Windows. Okay, so this is really all I had to share. I hope you found this video interesting. If you have any problems, please do ask. I will do the best I can to help you out. Now that you have this, all you really should do is go through the links here, read the tutorials, use the examples, and you're going to be able to run all these things and build whatever you want with libtins. I am going to stop here in this video, and I will see you next time.